Welcome back to Lost in Roshar, the ultimate journey through the Stormlight Archive. I'm Christian Kremling.
And I'm Jimmy Stormblessed. Today we're diving into the final interludes of the Way of Kings as we close out part 3 of this first book of the Stormlight Archive. This podcast has spoilers for all of the Stormlight Archive, so if you haven't read it all, we'll see you later. For everyone else, welcome back to Lost in Roshar. But it's weird to say that these are the final interludes, Christian, because we're going into part 4 and there's a part 5, but part 5 does not have interludes. And I, for one, am insulted by this. I understand it's for pacing, but I like things to be congruent. And the fact that there's not an interludes for part 4 upsets me greatly.
You know, as a self-proclaimed Stormlight aficionado, I was looking for the part 4 interludes today, and I thought, what is this? What is this omission in my edition? Did I get the wrong book? Turns out I just don't know my Stormlight anymore. And there's only 3 sets of interludes, which I guess, like you said, pacing. Mm-hmm. You want to get to the Sanderlange after part 4. There's probably a big gut punch cliffhanger. And he was like, you know what? I can't study more Flamespren right now. We got to get to the action. Yeah.
I think it should have been part 4.1, not part 5.
Yeah, just to make it extra anime for the reader. 4.1 part 1 0.
He gets us into this rhythm and then he breaks it. I mean, that's very rude, in my opinion.
The rhythm, not the rhythm of war, the rhythm of anti-interlude, which I'm strongly against. I loved interludes, man. They're just... I quite, even in my first read where I had no idea what the heck was happening, I always welcomed a good interlude because they're just snappy, they're different, and we finally see more of this planet that is like sorely underused, you know?
Yeah, no doubt. And also it gives us more puzzle pieces, and I think is meant to be somewhat of a bridge maybe between things that we don't understand. And I like that. I like looking for these things as we read through, which obviously we're on this reread. I think it's a little bit easier to go see those things instead of just trying to figure out what, Kaladin or Shallan or Dalinar are doing next. So the interludes are even better on a reread. And as is most of the book, I think, besides the strap.
I haven't talked about the strap in a while.
Thank God.
Oh, you know what? I started 2024 without the strap, and it's already back.
It's coming back in part 4, bro. It's going to be there.
You know who really broke the strap? It was the Kremling hive mind. We just, we crept in and just nibbled enough to to make Elhokar keep him on his toes.
Our little pincers. We just
yeah. How's your week been, dude? It's been we're recording a little later than usual because I was in transit from New Zealand. I've returned. How's your week been?
It's been busy and not super favorable weather here on the east coast of America. Though my area actually hasn't been all that bad, but it has been colder than I like, which I'm kind of a wimp when it comes to cold weather. But work's been extremely busy, which is, I knew it was coming, but it's still worse than I imagined. The end of the year was so chill, and I was just staring down the barrel of 2024, and now it's here, and they just gave me 2 shells to the forehead at work, and I'm like, all right, I guess this is what we're doing. So I've been a little frazzled, but we keep moving, we keep doing the thing, and excited for spring. I'm excited for some warm weather.
Oh man, the return to work after the holidays it's never okay, and you're never ready for it. And I'm having that realization now, like after being in New Zealand, basically in Middle Earth, looking at mountains. I have no idea I'm laughing because on my Mac just like put balloons all around me.
It said you're going back to work. Yay!
Yeah, I don't know what triggered that. But yeah, being in Middle Earth with the mountains, I was literally driving around with the Lord of the Rings soundtrack banging in the car.
Oh, wow.
And it was just glorious in these misted mountains. And then I got off the airport at Sydney and it was just like grey and flat.
Concrete.
Oh, man. It's just...
I hate concrete. I'm done with concrete, dude.
You done with concrete?
Yeah, whenever you just look around, everything's concrete, roads, and just like, man, what happened to nature and the beauty
of it? What happened to
stones?
We're shin people now.
We're shin.
Well, can't walk on stones. I wonder what Shin people would think of Concrete. Is that allowed?
I don't think they would be a big fan. I feel like they would think it's sacrilegious.
Yeah, I think it's pretty close to Stones at that point.
I think so. Well, I'm glad you had such a good time in New Zealand, dude. I mean, visiting the Hobbiton and stuff. I mean, that stuff just looks so much fun. And I think it's times like those when I don't know about you, but like I come back from trips and I'm going on one here in a few weeks somewhere. And it's like, I know when I get back, I'm just gonna be like, why do I spend 99% of my life doing these things that I don't care about? Well, how do we be able to do things like the New Zealand trip and do podcast about things we love and make, you know what I mean? How do you make that happen? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah. It's the post-holiday come down. Or whenever you're doing something you love, you stop and you're like, oh, back to all this other crap,
Yeah.
Gotta have the darkness to have the light, as I don't know, probably Gandalf said it or something.
Ups and downs,
they
go hand in hand, and they're important to one another. Possibly, that's what they tell me. That's what I'm gonna tell myself, so I can get through this year. But, yeah, man, it's it's just another week here on Lost in Roshar, where existential crises come out no matter what.
We're always a step away from existential dread on this show. You never know when it's gonna rear its ugly head. But hey, look. If Alloy of Mid wasn't so mid, I wouldn't be loving Era 2 so much, I'm gonna think of it that way.
That's a really good point. How's your progress going with Era 2? Are you
It was a bit slower as New Zealand got prettier. I was like, I'm gonna look at this instead of a book. But it's progressing well. The thing with Era 2 of Mistborn is I'm weirdly more, because Sanderson, it's all about the plot, right? For a lot of the selling point is the plot and how it all converges, and the Cosmere connections and the implications. But trademark, yeah. But I'm like really into the character work, and I'm like, oh, these relationships are progressing well, and how are they going to end up? And there's some tension here, and I understand this person's actions a bit more. So that's cool, and the plot is like fine, I'm like, okay. Cool.
Interesting. That is not what I'm expecting it when I continue. So that's a curveball. Yeah,
it is a curveball. I think the plot will go wild soon in this book, in the third book, and then the fourth, I know, from everyone's takes, is just bananas in terms of if you're a Cosmere fan. So that will be fun. I've heard I need to read The Emperor's Soul to fully appreciate the fourth book, which I will do.
Fantastic novella. It's actually, pound for pound, it's my favorite Sanderson. So I am very curious to see what you think. And won a Hugo.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, I started it earlier in the year when I was having trouble reading. I was like, let's do a novella. And then even then I was so busy, I just couldn't get through it. It's set into like days. I maybe got to like day 10 or something. But I will read it. I'm in a good reading zone at the moment. So I'm keen to like add another Cosmere patch to my Cosmere vest, like whatever it is. You got to like acknowledge every series you've read.
Of course. Maybe when you reread Emperor's Soul, maybe I will read it with you. Maybe that's something we could read together and we could talk about it. That'd be fun. Because I actually love that story. And I think it's his best prose, actually. So I would be keen to read it again.
He put out a video this week of like his 2024 recommendations of like where to start. And he gave a lot based on what kind of reader you are. And Emperor's Soul was one of them. If you want to like get a taste of his finer writing.
I didn't get to watch the video. Did he recommend Warbreaker as a starting point at any, like, was that one of them? Really?
No. He started off with Tress. For like a whimsical fairy tale vibe. And then he went for like, if you like action, read Skyward. And I'll stand by the first Skyward book. I really liked it, even though Jimmy's like Jimmy looks like he ate a sour lemon over there. But the first Skyward is actually really good. But these two books it's like never what I say when I'm recommending Sanderson. Oh my God, the balloons are showing up again. I got to stop doing whatever I'm doing. I think it's the peace sign.
It's the peace sign.
Yeah. And then he recommended Mistborn, of course. And then he's like, if you're serious and you want the whole thing, Way of Kings.
That's right. Go in the deep end.
I just sat there, arms folded, nodding slowly. Yes. The Way of Kings. And then I think and then the last one was Emperor's Soul. Um, I like how like he gave different recommendations. Also, he's got to sell all his series at the same time. Like you got to
that really
recommend
does
the
cover a
YA
lot of
book.
points, doesn't it?
Yeah, you got to recommend the novellas. You got to recommend non-Cosmere. But look, everyone's like, read Mistborn because it's not as difficult. I'm like, read Stormlight. It's not as hard as it's not as difficult as people make it out to be. It's pretty straightforward. There's a lot you can latch onto.
Yeah, as long as you're ready for the ride. I have a friend who's reading for the first time, and they're like, man, this is slow. Like, it is very slow. And I'm trying to kind of give them the, just a push. I don't like interfering with people's reading experiences. I'm not hands on because I know what that feels like. Whenever I say I'm reading a very popular series on my book channel, and then people are like, let me tell you everything that you need to think, So I'm just kind of like, well, there'll be some growth there. But the one interesting thing about this friend is that he's like, could Sanderson stop being annoying with these hints? That's obviously Kaladin's special and he's drawing Stormlight. He's like, it's so obvious. Yeah. And I'm just sitting there like, yeah, dude, it's so obvious. I'm thinking about my first time reading. I'm like, did I know? Like, was I this confident? Because he's only he just got into part 3, like just started it today.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, he knows. Like, he's like, dude, this is so obvious. Like,
yeah. I mean, I think it's obvious. I remember, to be honest, I don't remember. I first read this in like 2017. I don't remember.
It's been a while, yeah.
How I felt. But I think at this point, at least in part 3, you're meant to be picking up on it.
I would hope so.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's a really boring book.
He's like, man, I'm being beat over the head with this. Can we just acknowledge this on the page now? Can we just do it? And I'm like, just wait. It'll escalate. I promise.
That's fair enough. I've grown more patient as I got older because, like, normally when someone's reading or watching something I like, I was always the like, just wait, guy. Just wait till the next one. Just wait till this moment. But you got to enjoy what you're experiencing right now. Like, why can't we just celebrate the first 100 pages or whatever? Like, just let people enjoy things.
Or disenjoy things. Or like,
not enjoy things. I don't care. Yeah, it's like, I love this so much. I don't care if somebody hates it or tells me it sucks. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me.
I'm with you, actually. And I say this a lot about A Song of Ice and Fire because I'm so close to it. And I don't just mean like emotionally, but I mean like the conversations I'm having about A Song of Ice and Fire on a weekly basis have nothing to do with the merits of whether people like it or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It has everything to do with like the finer details and a lot of psychoanalysis of characters, the way themes are interacting with one another. And as we have done this podcast, I'm starting to feel that way about this now in Stormlight as well. And, there are things I like and I don't like, but those conversations are far in the past at this point. Maybe we'll mention them every now and then, but we're doing something different. Yeah. And I would argue, for myself at least, I can say this definitely for myself, may not be for everybody else, but I get more out of reading doing this than I do fighting over a star rating or something.
Yeah, like I remember when I first started making videos, I didn't know if I was going to be that guy. I didn't think I ever would be, like the review critic. Yeah. I never really felt the capacity to do that. I like just really diving into something and trying to understand it. Hence Lost in Roshar. It feels like we're like tourists in this world and we're just trying to like take it all in. We're not trying to judge it as a literary piece. Yeah, sometimes we'll appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll comment on it, but like you said, even me, I have done a ton of reviews, and I do talk about books. I talk about what I like and what I don't like about them. But there's just certain things or series that once I'm into them, those conversations are retired for me in a way. People, I have people message me reading A Song of Ice and Fire, be like, I hate A Dance with Dragons, it sucks, and I'm like, I literally like. I don't care. And I don't mean I don't care because I'm angry. I don't care because like I
just don't care.
I made up my mind in 2018 about that. I'm fine with it, but I'm more interested in how we talk about, Marines politics and how do we get out of this situation and how do we get up here and blah, 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 blah. So
yeah, man, we're in too deep. We're in so deep.
Yeah. I can't see the beginning of the end of the rabbit hole. I'm in the darkness.
I'm in the Kremlin. I'm in the burrows, man. I've got all these. Yeah. So I remember being so bothered, like when I'd see a bad review of Stormlight in my early days, be like, how dare they? how dare they say these things? And now I'm like, that's probably fair enough, whatever.
Yeah, it's probably fair enough. Yeah.
Yes, we're maturing.
Slowly but surely. I think you've kind of covered the Sando update with that. I did want to mention there's a trailer up on his channel for the Words of Radiance Leatherbound.
Ooh,
Have you seen it?
Like, well, I think I saw it when it first dropped, but like every week now he does like a little piece on each order of Radiant, which is fun. Written by Dan Wells.
Danny Wells.
Yeah, so Dan Wells is writing these little like tidbits. It seems it's like by someone who was studying the Radiants back when they were in their peak, like when they were quite common, like Dalinar Vision era, and they're just colloquially talking about each order. And some of it was pretty funny, especially the Windrunner ones. That made me laugh because it's
Did you hear the rumor?
What's that?
That Dan Wells might write Stormlight 7?
Oh, get out of here. Get out of here. Jimmy Troll blessed.
I just want to start a misinformation campaign about Cosmere. Like, I want to be the number one resource for I want to be like the Breitbart of the Cosmere. I'm gonna be the conspiracy theorist.
Hey man, I know Sando's expanding, but there's no way. I'm telling you right now, there's no way any Stormlight book says like Brandon Sanderson and Dan Wells, or even.
What about novellas? Do you think?
Maybe a novella. It depends. I think it depends how far he wants to stretch it. I think what he does now of like novella between each book, basically, will stay his. But if there's more that he wants to do beyond main book novella, maybe there'll be like a Dan thing. But I don't think he'll give up his ground. It's like what he does now is what he does.
I guess anything's possible. I guess we'll have to see. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm just messing around.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be a discussion eventually, like decades, like the merits of Dan Wells' Cosmere and Isaac Stewart's. Is it Isaac Stewart? Somebody else is writing other stuff too. So I'm curious, and it's his baby. And he knows these guys super well. So there's obviously a level of trust. I wonder if the voices will vary so much that it will feel that different. I'm curious. Curious.
Maybe the Cosmere will be like 40 Warhammer, 40K in like 100 years.
Do they have like multiple? How does that work? I don't really know how Warhammer works.
I cannot tell you about it because I don't want you to. Okay. We'll lose you. It'll be over.
I'll start a new podcast.
It is. There's so much.
Hey man, I'm going to be starting to paint my Stormlight minifigs if they ever arrive, and then it's a slippery slope to Warhammer, right?
That's a wrap. It's a wrap. You're going to be living behind a dumpster behind Wendy's. It's going to be a nightmare. We'll be like, but at least I got the lore, brother.
I'll just be yelling at people. Did you know the Heralds were in the prologue? Oh, mate. Speaking of Heralds, we've got an interlude to talk about. Jimmy told me he had no idea what was going on in this interlude, and I couldn't have been happier.
Yeah, he's like, what'd you think? I'm like, I don't know what happened. And he's like, perfect. Just don't read anything else. I said, okay, that's fine. We got 3 interludes here. They're all relatively short. The third one's the longest, and that's with Szeth. But the first one is interlude number 7, technically. But it's the first one here for part 3. And it's called Baxel. And there is no epigraphs for these, so we won't have any dramatic readings of those, unfortunately. But the summary of this, which, by the way, I get most of these summaries from coppermine.net. I want to give them credit. I do paraphrase from now, every now and then, just to kind of mix it up because I don't want to always read it for verbatim. But big shout out to Coppermine. They help the show out a lot. So thanks to them. So the summary for interlude number 7 is... Baxel and his cousin Av, what a terrible name, walk down a corridor of the palace of Ashno of Sages. Their mistress walks ahead and stops at an intersection. She asked for his bag of tools. For Baxel's. I'm dumb. Yeah. And she proceeds into the Hollowwood Hall, where she begins to destroy works of art, slashing paintings with a knife and pounding on sculptures with a mallet. As she works, Baxel and Av talk about going to the Nightwatcher. Baxel claims he can avoid the curse by phrasing his request just right, but Av says it doesn't matter what your boon is, you get a curse no matter what. Baxel wishes he could get some courage using the old magic, and that is the very least of what is going on here. There's clearly a bunch of stuff happening. And how about I'm trying to decide whether I should just start vomiting at you just things I've noticed, and then we just go in. I think that might be a good idea. You don't have to answer these things, but I'm going to vomit at you real quick.
Go.
And the first thing I'm going to say is, and if you, I'm going to give very light Yumi spoilers, basically just of something that's included in Yumi, but you don't have to. Yeah, I'm just giving if you're a listener, you don't want to know a single word about Yumi, but this is really just expectation spoilers. Art slashing paintings with a knife, and pounding on sculptures. I just thought of Yumi here because of what art is on that planet. Though I don't know if Sanderson ever planned to write Yumi at this point, so I don't know if that maybe Yumi became something from this, possibly. Who knows? So I did think about that because of the art in Yumi.
Right.
Couple other questions here. Why does Baxel want courage? He must for him to be and to go mess with old magic, it has to be something extremely important, and that is a very big question about
like what's he going for?
Yes, there has to be a reason here, right? Now, on top of that, is it Baxel who says his brother went to the Nightwatcher, but his hands went numb forever, or is it Av? One of them says that.
It's the non-POV guy. Whoever
okay, so Av.
I get them mixed up. Yeah.
So I'm just curious, who's Av's brother, and are we going to see him?
Yeah.
And he also didn't know what Av asked for. He said he seems almost embarrassed by whatever he asked. And for me, I would have let this go, and I would have said Av's brother's no one important. But the fact that he didn't know, and he said he might have been kind of embarrassed, I feel like this is just a little bit of a hint towards something. And I don't know if maybe it's meant to show that maybe the old magic is a place that people go for more personal issues. Because like courage is a personal thing, right? You could be embarrassed about not having courage. I don't know if that's meant to be a signifier for that, or if Av's brother is someone we're going to run into. We're going to find someone with numb hands during this reread, or in the second era of Stormlight. God. I'm curious. I'm so these are just things I saw. I really want to know who this lady is. I want to know who Baxel is, because Baxel seems significant, being a POV and needing courage for something. But this is what I have. This is what I got.
I love that. We're gonna see someone with numb hands, like someone's warming their hands too close to a fire.
And I want to know what the boon is. And I'll throw out this last thing. This is completely crackpot BS. Is this mistress? Could this mistress be Yasna? There's no way, obviously, but there's no way.
All right. I've held my tongue long enough, Jimmy.
All right, go.
All right. This mistress is a herald. We have a herald.
I should have known.
Yes, this is Shalash, the Herald of Beauty, who's commonly known as Ash, colloquially. People say, you know how the people of Roshar have exclamations for the heralds, like Kellick's breath.
Yeah,
they usually say Ash's eyes. That's what they'll say.
Nice.
And you know how every herald is a bit nuts. And they're usually a bit nuts in relation to what they were known for. For example, Nail was the Herald of Justice, and now he's gone a bit crazy, and he takes the law super literally and enforces it everywhere. Shalash was the Herald of Beauty, and now she destroys every depiction of herself everywhere. It's like her life's mission is to destroy every art piece of her, every statue of her. And we saw it in the prologue, dude. I don't know if you remember, but Szeth's walking past the statues of the heralds, and one's all smashed.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was her.
Wow.
And eventually when we read Edge Dancer in that palace where Lift is, she sees a depiction of the heralds as well. And her and Ash is all scratched out. And she's like, oh, that's weird. So she's with Baxel and Av just touring Roshar, breaking stuff. Which then when I was reading about them talking about the Nightwatcher and stuff, that seems now in hindsight, that seems very telling in terms of the Herald's madness, the the boon curse situation, right? Like every herald has like a flip side where they've gone crazy in relation to like whatever magic or whatever properties they were known for. It seems to be like a commentary on that to some degree. Wouldn't you say like he would have placed that on purpose, that conversation?
Yeah, I think so. And maybe this is, because the old magic is, Brandon said, is kind of like, it's literally like old magic and fantasy. It's not very well explained. It's kind of mysterious. And maybe we are supposed to kind of take the leap of, well, we don't know everything about old magic. We probably never will, but it's maybe the Herald's powers in general are somewhat linked to the old magic. Maybe what if all of this is a boon? Like the entire thing.
Yeah, it would be interesting if it's a boon or if it's like, it feels like a magical side effect. You know how everything's so scientific with Sanderson? It just feels like, if you've been alive this long, your powers flip or something. So it's interesting because like later on in the series, like she's self-aware that she's compelled to do this because we get some Ash POVs later, briefly in Oathbringer, and she's like looking for another herald, and she's actively not trying to look around in case she sees like a statue of herself because she'll know she'll get distracted by it. So like it's weird. It's like she hasn't fully lost it. She's like, oh man, if I see something, I got to do something about it.
Yeah, that's almost compulsive. Like there's something driving that.
Yeah. I mean, beyond that, it's because they hide it's a herald. The way he hides it's a herald is because they're in a whole different region of Roshar. They're in Emule, I think. Yeah, pretty sure they are. Which is kind of right near eerie, funnily enough. But they've got a whole different ruling system. And therefore, their like mythology with the heralds, they have different names. So like when it says that she's destroying an art piece, it says the painting depicted a Pan, Lady of Dreams. So like obviously it's a different name to Shalash.
Yeah, it's like a alias.
Yeah, which is curious to me because because Baxel and Av, right? Are they not seeing any resemblance between their mistress and all these artworks? Like, don't they kind of look similar?
Maybe that's why he wants Courage to ask her why she's doing all this.
Yeah, maybe he's slightly onto it. Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of says that. Like, the mistress took a knife from her bundle and slashed the painting down front. Baxel cringed, but said nothing. He'd almost gotten used to the casual way she destroyed art, though he was baffled by it. She did pay the two of them very well, however. So, I mean, I think you can tell it bothers him, but he's kind of like, well, I'm getting paid. But maybe that's the Courage thing coming out.
I would say so. Because she does look weird, like, in their eyes. All the heralds have some sort of, they're always described as looking kind of Shin, which basically means like not looking, you know how most people on Roshar have an Asian-ish appearance?
Yeah.
Shin are basically don't look like that. So that's why they're like, oh, she looks kind of Shin, but she's got dark skin. They can't figure out where she's from. Most heralds, if not all, were from Ashen, hence why they look different. I wonder why they haven't, like, I guess they're just getting paid. So they just like, oh, well, not going to ask questions.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe the courage to ask the question is exactly what it is, because he says, I've been thinking of seeking the old magic, Baxel said, partially to keep himself from cringing as the mistress moved on to gouge out the eyes of a fine bust. So that, interesting. Also, ash eyes and gouging out the eyes. But I feel like, why is he thinking about the old magic at this exact moment? And he's cringing. So I guess that very well could be the answer to my courage question.
Yeah, I would say so.
Mm-hmm.
The other fun fact about her is she says at the end, perhaps I should get myself a Shardblade, she said absently, pulling the tool up on her shoulder, but that might make this too easy. So interesting about that is that tells you that whenever the heralds put their honor blades in the circle in the prelude, she didn't go and retrieve it. Like, she does not have her honor blade anymore. So she's thinking about getting a Shard Blade. But I also wonder why she cares about making this easy. Is there like some sort of like catharsis in just grabbing a hammer and smashing a statue?
Well, what else is she going to do?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, if you've got immortality.
She's just looking for purpose.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. What did you think of this curse, dude? Where like his dad saw the world upside down from then on? That sounds terrible.
Yeah,
Sounds awful.
You know what I thought of though? I kind of thought of Shadesmar because like it's like Reverso world.
Yeah.
Seeing things upside down. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Like I wonder what Shadesmar would look like upside down.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how the heck he got used to that. His dad was no way telling me, oh yeah, I got used to it. There's no way you get used to that.
No, there's no way.
Dude, this sent me down a rabbit hole because researching about the Nightwatcher and stuff. And I'm like, freaking Taravangian, man. When Taravangian went there, like, his intention was just to help Gavilar with, like, you know, what needed to be done. And I forget what he asked, but it was like something about the intelligence and the compassion to help the world. But it's like his boon and like curse was they directly compare with each other. So like there's like a limit, there's like a capacity, and if you're like 90% intelligent, you're only intelligent, but you're like kind of angry and evil, or you're compassionate, but yeah, you're stupid.
Yeah, and I mean it's the whole thing about like AI, and you know this has been said millions of times, but it's like if you, the concern that you go to a super intelligent AI and you say we need to get rid of global warming, and it says rightio, and then it just kills every human.
yeah, it is like that. It is like that. And that's the thing about the diagram. It's like, yes, he's super intelligent that day, but it's for like nefarious purposes. It's not with that compassionate mind. Mm-hmm. And just reading more about the diagram, how he wrote in like new languages and stuff, and they got to like figure out the languages he created to like decipher what he was talking about. That is just so cool. And to know that this is all going on whilst we're reading this book is just so dope.
So cool. And then he has a whole ward of people that he's watching die and writing it down.
I know, because like I'm reading the Szeth chapter, I'm like, this is because the diagram told him to do this.
Mm-hmm.
He like wrote this down one day. He was like, get the assassin in white to like start a civil war. It's so insane. But I'm jumping the gun a bit, I guess. I don't know if there was anything else in this interlude. Like I just was chuffed that I finally, because I always knew it was Shalash. It was one of the first little tidbits I found out about the Way of Kings, and I thought it was really cool for understanding something. But when I read it today, I was like, oh, this old magic conversation is not there for you know, just to pass the time. One, it's also relating to the Szeth's whole situation, because like that's influencing Taravangian, but more poignantly, I think it's about commenting on how the heralds kind of have a downside to their majesty.
And that makes me just wonder, like, because we've always asked, like, how did all this stuff start?
Yeah.
Maybe it was all from Boone.
Maybe. I think the common story is like Honor, the guy, whoever, Tanavas, the guy who held Honor at the time, was like, hey, I'm going to make you guys heralds. You get this, you get this, you get this. But maybe he comes with...
what if he went to the Nightwatcher?
Oh, I wonder. Yeah, that would be interesting.
Can he do that?
That's the question. Can he? I don't know if he could. It's like, I need to make 10 superheroes for a cool epic fantasy world. And she's like, yeah, but they go about 2,000 years in, they go mad. You know, 2,000 to 4,000 years, something goes wrong. He's like, yeah, that'll be fine. You know.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out by then.
Yeah, I'm sure there's enough time. Like, I heard this kid we'll
kick the can down the road. It'll be fine. Yeah. My only other question is, who is Prime Catasix?
Yeah, so that's like the naming convention for like the leaders of that area, just like the king. But I think there's a more religious element to the Catasix.
Well, I was wondering if maybe it related to, you know, Nightwatchers and also the heralds and boons, because you know this is the first time we've heard this phrase, right?
Yeah, it's totally out of nowhere. I'm fair. Oh, sorry, I've misread it. I've misremembered it. I was thinking of like whatever the leader's called.
The Pope?
not in our world. The one that the house that they're in now. Whatever. I just searched Cata6 now, and it redirected me to Herald. So it's just what they call the Heralds in this world. So the Prime Cata6 is probably just talking about Yazrian. Yeah. So they all basically all of Roshar looks back to the Heralds and their history, but there's been different histories and religions formed from them, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I like these parts of world building always.
Yeah, it's like a little puzzle, and it's accurate to the human experience, right? People, like, cultures are going to break off and create different stories and understandings. It's awesome. I wish we got more. I really crave more of this stuff because, ask me any question about the Alethian Vedan cultures. I'm cool, but ask me about the Cata6 and I'm like, I got to refresh myself on this. I would like to learn more about these parts of Roshar.
I was just telling somebody that I was hoping that one day we might get a Fire and Blood type deal or Silmarillion type deal for Roshar, but I think it's more likely it'd be Cosmere wide. And I also don't feel like Sanderson will do it. I don't think that. I don't know.
It feels kind of like, it felt waved into A Song of Ice and Fire too. I don't know. I feel like there's so much work to be done. Is there time? Is there time even with the Sando pace?
He's taking that 3 or 4 years off the Cosmere. Maybe that'll be a project he can squeeze in so he doesn't say he has to take a break. I don't know.
Guys, I wrote a whole history of Roshar on the toilet. Here you go.
I'd at least try it. Come on.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I actually said I don't know if Sanderson's the kind of author that would feel the need to do that, and I don't know if this is the series that wants it. But I just know that I like that kind of stuff. Like the history of the world is almost a more interesting thing to me.
I love that too. It's interesting. The thing about it's funny. Like when I read the Cosmere, Stormlight stands out more and more. Where the rest of the Cosmere feels a bit more consistent with itself. This feels like much more serious and much more in line with other epic fantasy I've read, but still with that Sando flavor. So it makes me curious, like how far will he lean to that stuff that we're used to, of like the history book, and how far will he go to that typical epic fantasy seriousness? Because I feel like I had a term run into my mind, but I don't know if it's a good one because it makes me sad. But like the hashtag casual Cosmere vibes. Creeping, like sometimes creep in to Stormlight, like the kind of the sunlit man Yumi banter, edge dancer kind of energy can sometimes creep in, and it's okay sometimes, but I don't want it to be so colloquial. Is that the word? Like I like how epic and serious it is.
I know what you mean. Yeah. That's why I'm attracted to the series, to be honest.
Yeah.
This is also something where he has these co-writers like Dan Wells and others. Like that's something that they can do because, George did work with his assistants actually on Fire and Blood. I just don't. I think a lot of those history questions are driving forces probably to like answers that we're going to get in these books. Now, George did some interesting things by having like unreliable narrators and stuff in Fire and Blood, and you could definitely go down that path, but you would have to find a narrator, right? I think Roshar, but let's just say this. I think Roshar could have one because there's all these historians and things that, it could be Yasna's notebook that we end up reading, which would be so cool.
That would be so dope.
I have a feeling that her interludes might be journal entries, like epistolary.
Like her flashbacks?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that could be really fun. Well, they tease that Yasna had some messed up like condition in childhood. It'd be cool to see like if the notes were like of the doctors or like the medical team.
You could do so much with it, and there's no rules. Like the interludes could be anything. So I guess that's a bucket, or not a bucket list, but like an extra superlative that I would love to have is some sort of history book.
Imagine like he's saving her to the last book. What if like as a child she went to like a different planet or something? It's got to be crazy. It's got to be something crazy like, Yasna was, she had these episodes as a kid. She was like off flipping coins with Kelsier or something.
Oh my goodness.
Can
Or
you
could like
imagine?
see, I mean, yeah, I would not be surprised if that's the final.
Oh man. Oh, there's crazy stuff going
And
on.
you know it's going to play into the reason why she's atheistic, right? Like there's no way it doesn't play into it.
Yeah, you're so right.
Yeah.
Oh man, there's so much background. I love the background stuff in the Cosmere, and especially in Stormlight. Especially when I went down the Ash rabbit hole today. Like there's a scene later. There's an interlude. I don't know which book it's in, but there's an interlude with Ash again, and she's written as being a maid of somebody. And then this like glorious painting is being moved through the scene, and she's like, oh, she slashes it, and she's like, yes, I finally got this painting of myself. And then in walks Mraize. He like saunters in, the guy who's leading the Ghost Bloods on Roshar, one of the higher ups. He's like, is that all it took, that painting, to find you? I'm like, oh dude, the Ghost Bloods are like hunting heralds down. This is so
wild.
sick. Yeah. And it's all coming together now.
There's a lot of moving pieces in this puzzle, and people all are at different levels of the game. It's crazy.
Yeah, and we're right here at the top here on Lost in Roshar. We're overseeing this glorious planet.
We're trying our best.
Ad free so far.
Well, I guess we can move on to Interlude 8, which is the second interlude of this episode, which is Garanid. Is that how you say it? Garanid?
Yeah.
Okay. So Garanid and Ashir are two ardents in the twilight of life, devoted to each other and their research. Garanid studies Spren. Ashir uses cooking to experiment with chemistry. He wonders if he should change his calling because food may not be needed in the cognitive and spiritual realms. He measures a flame sprint and notes that it stays locked in its current state once it is measured. Ashir tells Garanid to go into the other room. He will call out 3 numbers, 1 the true measurement, and she is only to write down 1. When he calls out the actual measurement, the sprint locks in place. It seems to know when it's being measured. So this is the idea of particles and waves collapsing when like measured. And
quantum mechanics on Roshar.
Yes. Which, by the way, when I first read this, I think I was still in school. No, I was not still in school for physics. But oh my God, this is when I said I love this book. I remember this is the interlude, and I said I don't know what the heck these interludes are, but the fact that he's playing with quantum mechanics here, I'm all in. Like, I loved it so very much, which is funny because a lot of the stuff in book 4 kind of went this way as well, and I didn't like it as much.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think I have other reasons for that. I think that maybe we'll see when we get there in 8 years. But I love this interlude for what it is, which is just kind of physics, right? It's fun, but it also does bring up, and this is probably what Sanderson's playing with here, is that he is showing people who are going to be, measuring flame spren and doing science, but also preparing for this cognitive spiritual realm afterlife, right? So you have this supernatural element of cognitive and spiritual realms while they're doing hard science, which is now having a reaction that feels supernatural, spooky action at a distance, those type of things, right? I like this. I like this interlude.
I really enjoyed it. Few things. Firstly, I'm gonna resist calling him Garamid. It's just his name is begging for it, but he seems cool, so we're gonna leave that.
He seems fine.
Yeah. Maybe Giganid. Let's do that. I was just like being. I've traveled to Cosmere for some years now, and I'm quite surprised. Like, these two ardents on the Reshi Isles, they know a lot. They know, like, what's going on. Those Reshi
Isles are a little weird, aren't they?
Hey, man, you go to the islands, you come back different. You come back talking about Shadesmar, apparently. But they're so nonchalant about it. Yeah, like, I wonder what food looks like in Shadesmar, in the cognitive realm. That'd be interesting. Meanwhile, like, people like Shallan are, like, having an existential crisis with these swirly head things. And being like, what is going on? And these guys are like, oh, what happens in the spiritual realm? Like they're one level beyond. So I'm like, yes, they're two ardents who are studying. Is this the average like science enthusiast on Roshar or scientist on Roshar? It feels like a bit more than that. Like these guys seem very sophisticated.
They do, but there's also levels to this. You know, I mean, there's people who don't understand the metric system, and then there's people who understand black holes.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that is true. That is very true.
If anything, it makes the world feel big.
It does. It does. Yeah, you're right. And it's like they're living in a world where, like, yes, the person who knows about black holes isn't uploading a 5-minute YouTube video to describe it to you, like on Roshar. But the I know, right? Stormlight 10. Can't let him post to like Shard book.
He has a whole section of a vlog.
Yeah. Hey guys, just with Bridge 4 today.
Welcome back. It's your boy.
It's your boy, Stormblast, here with another bridge run for you. So yeah, look, thank God we're not there yet. But they do publish a paper on this because it does get mentioned in the next book. I think it's in the next book, Navani's assistant is like, hey, there's this new paper about flame spread and how they're measured. You should read it. So they do get somewhere with this, which is cool. I was curious because she's like messing around with the cognitive realm and measuring Spran and seeing how like your perception of them influences how they act and all this stuff. But he's just like cooking food. And I was like, is there a magical component to this? Like he's looking at stuff from Shinovar, which is, you know, obviously foreign to them. But then remember the Pure Lake interludes where we like learned that the fish were kind of magical and they gave you like, there's a bit of that going on. Now and they're in the Reshi Isles. I was like, ooh.
That's I was thinking about the Reshi Isles being in the other interlude. That's a good connection.
Because like the Reshi Isles are like above the Pure Lake. There's only like a small landmass separating them. Man, you know how good my knowledge of the map of Roshar is? Because I got the Roshar 1,000 piece puzzle for Christmas.
Nice.
And I've been slaving over that thing, so I know this map really well. The Pure Lake is still like landlocked, but the Reshi Isles aren't that far. So I wonder if there's something in the water, so to speak, up there where, you know, what you cook can do some things. But beyond that, I like these two. They seem very sweet. They got a nice little relationship here going. I'm telling you, man, Sanderson does mature relationships way better, I feel like, than his teeny bopper angsty ones.
I agree. I think the older relationships are definitely the ones I prefer him to write.
At the same time, though, like maybe we're just getting older because I feel like teeny bopper.
I feel pretty confident about this.
Okay.
I feel pretty confident about this.
All right. I won't try.
The man should stick to the more mature relationships.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say in Mistborn era too, the relationships I'm seeing are quite good. But yeah, I like how they just, you know, they're basically missionaries, but they're like, you know what, let's just do some science because, you know, there aren't many people here to help. And I just found it cool. Like, you know much more about the physics side than me, meaning I know nothing.
It's been a while.
I tried to learn, but I was like, this is way beyond me, at least in the way where I was reading about it. But like the fact that it's being measured like to the point of like in the other room and all this stuff, like that's surely the magical aspect, right? That's not connecting to real life quantum mechanics, is it? Or does it get that trippy?
So are you meaning like, does this happen in the experiment in our physics?
Yeah. Like how much does this connect? Like how much is he playing around with it?
It connects fairly well. And I kind of wish I maybe had something up because it's been a while. I used to, obviously I went to school for physics. I never graduated, but I've always had like an interest in it, but it's been quite a while and I don't want to butcher it. But what I will say is this, it is really crazy. The fact that during an experiment, actually measuring something changes its behavior and the fact that it can be measured, right? That does feel magical. However, I think this is something that gets hijacked by a lot of people who don't necessarily understand it, and then they insert the fact that, hey, there could be magic here, like, or proof for something else, right? I think Sanderson might be playing with that a little bit here, possibly. I think that he might be kind of saying, well, look at this crazy thing that is science, but we're also talking about this cognitive spiritual. Maybe he's trying to make a bridge between those things, possibly. I don't know that for sure, but yes, there is some very interesting things that happen whenever you're on the quantum level and you decide to measure.
That makes me very curious.
Yeah, it's essentially the slit experiment. Is whenever you're shooting like particles through a slit, and then you expect it to go through like a hole, and then it doesn't whenever you measure it, but it did if it doesn't, and then it's both a wave and a particle at the same time. It's very
okay.
There's a really great video about it. I have to look it up, but I'll send it to you. And I know there's at least one physicist listening to this. I'm sorry that I'm butchering this. I'm a bad ambassador for the brand. It's just been such a long time. But yes, this is close to what we saw with that experiment.
If there's a physicist listening, Spanreed us. Explain it to us explain it to me in layman's terms.
I used to be able to do this. I'm very kind of disappointed in myself right now, but
no, that was good. I found this when I read about it a little bit. Someone asked Sanderson, like, is this influenced by quantum mechanics? And he said, yeah, like with my magic systems, it's like meant to be it's like interacting with the physics as we know it today, but it's like an offshoot. So I wanted to address that in my world. He's like, dude, I'm doing like hard magic systems to the nth degree. I'm creating new physics. Like, it's incredible what he's doing. And the fact that I don't know, there's just something special about that interlude. Just like a neat little experiment with some cool character work. It's a very good interlude. And I remember being amazed by it when I first read it. I was like, that's so fascinating.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was pretty captivating, to be honest with you. And it made me super excited to see how it was going to play out. I pulled up the observer effect, which is, and by the way, I said slit experiment's a double slit experiment, but this is just a very basic definition of the observer effect. So in physics, the observer effect is the disturbance of an observed system by an act of observation. This is often a result of utilizing instruments that by necessity alter the state of what they measure in some manner. A common example is checking the pressure in an automobile tire, which causes some of the air to escape, thereby changing the pressure to observe it. Similarly, seeing non-luminous objects requires light hitting the object to cause it to reflect that light. While the effects of observation are often negligible, the object still experiences a change, leading to the Schrodinger's cat thought experiment. This effect can be found in many domains of physics, but can usually be reduced to insignificance by using different instruments and observation techniques. A notable example of the observer effect occurs in quantum mechanics, as demonstrated by the double slit experiment. Physicists have found that the observation of quantum phenomena by a detector or an instrument can change the measured results of this experiment. Despite the observer effect, in the double slit experiment being caused by the presence of an electronic detector, the experimenter's results have been interpreted to some to suggest a conscious mind that can directly affect reality. However, the need for the observer to be conscious versus merely just existent, as in a unicellular microorganism, is not supported by scientific research and has been pointed out as a misconception rooted in poor understanding of the quantum wave function and the quantum measurement process. So we could go on about electrons and stuff, but this is actually, I'm really glad that I had that in there. This is generally a very interesting thing, and then can lead for people to
take the next leap and be like,
yes,
ooh.
Yeah. But I think the way Sanderson portrayed it, like as science in this interlude, is very cool and very good. He did a good job.
Oh man, that's so cool. I don't think he goes to that level ever again. I suppose with the light stuff, there's something about the lights that just don't hit the same as a nice little spren, you know.
Just imagine, okay? Just fill it in.
But hey, this is one of my favorite things in Sanderson books whenever they're studying the magic and like actually making discoveries. It's very cool.
Yeah, I mean,
It's very fun.
At least for me, and I think a lot of us nerds, is like, research and discovery is quite amazing. I get excited every time I see a breakthrough in some sort of scientific field, whether it be nutrition, general health, or rocket science or whatever it is. It's always exciting that still to this day, after thousands of years, we're learning and breaking barriers, and the glass ceilings are being shattered and stuff. So cool to see it also in a fantasy world.
Yeah, some might say you're lost in discovery, mate.
You just might. It's a really cool series for those out there that maybe really like this stuff. It's not a 1-for-1, but a series where the engineers are the heroes. Is Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu. It is very much about engineering and discovering, as well as being an epic fantasy with a secession drama that's really epic. But there's a lot of engineering in that and invention. It's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Bring in some science to our sci-fi fantasy. Why not?
Yeah.
Speaking of science and nuance, we're going to throw that out the window and we're going to read about a massacre.
Yeah, good old-fashioned violence. Just how we like it.
Yeah.
Interlude 9, The Devil Wears Prada. No, I'm just kidding. Death Wears Prada. Szeth's POV. So Szeth kills 2 guards and crashes through a door, entering the king's banquet. And he starts to kill. King Hanavanar, which is a ridiculous name, of Ja Kaved, yells for... I feel like I say that a lot in the interludes. There's a lot of ridiculous names in these interviews.
He just falls on his keyboard.
Yeah, it's like, dude, there's too many N's in this. Look, Hannah Vanar. No, it's not. It's actually too many A's. 1, 2, 3. There's 4 A's in that name. That's too many.
Oh my god,
too many.
I feel like you're about to break into Havana by Camila Cabello. Havana, na.
Havana, na. All right. Szeth slaughters many of the people trying to flee and makes his way over to the king. 2 Shardbearers come out from hiding. Another squad wearing half shards enter the room to attack. Szeth drops his sword and uses his Windrunner abilities to fling the attackers about the room. He infuses a stone multiple times and lashes it towards one of the Shardbearers, crushing him to death. He kills the rest of the honor guard easily and slams himself down on the king, pinning him to the floor. He puts his shard blade through his face. Not exactly subtle. Not exactly subtle, right?
Man, you ended that sentence like Seth ended the king, mate. That was great.
I mean, that's what it said. It said he put it through his face. Yeah, I mean, this is the first, real massacre. I mean, outside of the prologue, of course, but this is
crazy.
Pretty brutal.
This was insane, dude. He stood atop wasn't there like he stood atop a pile of like 30 people at some point? Yeah. It is insane. This is like, mate, Sanderson.
Epic levels of destruction, truly.
They say Sanderson can't do, violence. Hello. Read this scene.
I mean, I also thought Mistborn was extremely violent.
Oh, Mistborn's insane.
Yeah, it is brutal, man. Especially when you think, oh, it's a teenage female protagonist, and then there's like spikes in dudes' eyes and stuff. Like, what is going on?
Hemorrhagy itself, like as a concept, is insane. Like the spikes are crazy. Anyway, when I was reading this, I was like, oh, would this be like? Am I annoyed that Shardblades don't break the skin? I know that sounds very sadistic. But I was like, because at first I was like, oh, when I first read the book, I'm like, why doesn't it, why are we doing this? It's like, taking something away from the, how destructive it should be and how shocking it should be. But there are some descriptions here. I'm like, man, this is quite like, there's something mystical. There's like a mystical sense of destruction to it, which still kind of hits you hard. Like when it goes through someone's chest and they're like, totally collapse, but just only their shirt rips. There's just something kind of unsettling. There's like an extra sense of horror. It
goes beyond the physical, which is congruent with the idea of a spiritual or cognitive realm, that there's these different planes of existence, and this one is reaching a little bit further.
That's what I mean. It's like almost scarier. It's like, what's it doing really then? Like if we're not seeing actual effects. Ugh.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
And who figured that out? Like how was this created and like why this way?
Yeah. So respect to the Shardblades, guys.
Yeah.
Don't knock them. Really don't knock them, because you'll lose your abilities of that limb. But Havana na 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 of Yakaved, bit of a wuss, bit of a maybe.
Wasn't standing on business.
Did he do anything wrong?
Maybe not. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, he messed with Taravangian apparently, because Taravangian's, you know what? I've got to eliminate basically everyone else in my general area, so I can stumble in as the humble Taravangian and be like, oh, I guess I should lead. I should take care of this. Oh, it's a shame you all died.
I don't want the power,
but if I must. So I was reading about, like, because I was like, okay, yes, I remember these scenes, but like, why? Why did this happen? Why did this happen? So I'm going to read a little bit about the diagram.
All right, let's hear it.
So thank you, Coppermind. This is in the diagram page under the subheading Assassination of Leaders. Very clear to find. It says, the diagram mentioned the possibility of finding or creating a Shin Truthless who they could use as a weapon. I mean, that sentence alone is getting me excited. It is unclear whether the diagram was involved in the events that led to Szeth becoming a Truthless, but one of Taravangian's men, a World Hopper, did eventually obtain possession of the Oathstone and ordered the Shin Man who possessed Yezrian's Honor Blade to assassinate numerous world leaders. Obeying the holder of his Oathstone, Szeth killed many of Roshar's royalty and anyone else who stood in his way. The final person he assassinated, who was sent to assassinate, was Dalinar. Dalinar had been trying to unite the High Princess of Alethkar, which Taravangian felt was a threat to the diagram's command that Taravangian should rule all of Roshar. That's an interesting command. And then, Kaladin saves the day, blah-de-blah-de-blah. And then I'm just going to go a bit lower to what's happening now. The takeover of Yakaved. Taravangian had used Szeth to kill the king of Yakaved and several Vedan high princes, creating a power vacuum and a succession crisis. The surviving Vedan high princes vied for the throne and were killed in a brutal civil war. Taravangian went to Vedanar posing as a benevolent foreign king, bringing aid to the war-torn city as the diagram instructed him to. Taravangian had created a false genealogy showing he had a legitimate claim to the Yakaved throne, which would be conveniently discovered by his scribes after a week. So, yeah, this is all part of his grand plan to take over the world. And he kind of has. By the end of Rhythm of War, he really has. So, yeah, the seeds are planted right here, the Wave Kings.
Yeah, and I remember just feeling blown away when I've started seeing everything that was coming out about Taravangian, and it was like, wow, it was there all along. He had been doing things in the background, and then obviously we saw him in the Yasna chapters, or I should say Shallan chapters. But he is he's probably the best antagonist Sanderson's ever written. Probably. Right?
I agree. Yeah. The whole diagram Nightwatcher situation is just brilliant. It's so brilliant. What did you make of Szeth getting angry at this king? Was that just a commentary on a coping strategy? He didn't have to kill all these people and it's the king's fault, he laid the trap, or is this some sort of weird thing going on?
Well, he could just have a disdain for people that maybe abuse power or vindictive with or anything, because he got casted out from his place, from his leaders. But it seemed like he's very accepting of his sentence of being truthless. It feels as if he's accepting.
Extremely.
So it's hard to say. I think maybe it might be a little bit of copium, possibly, or maybe that's just how he sees the world, black and white.
Yeah, it was something I was toying with. I liked what you said, these people that abuse power, and he has to take it out on somebody, right?
Yes.
I'm just reading about the person who asked about how they got Szeth, and they asked Sanderson, when Taravangian first got control of Szeth, he sent a man with a dark face and an accent Szeth didn't recognize, who was also wearing a mask. Is this masked man a world hopper from southern Scadrial? And then Sanderson just said the Masked Man is a world hopper. So the fact, like, not only does Taravangian have like the diagram and all these like helpers at his disposal, but he's got people from other planets. He's got a whole network going on. It's just like, give me that backstory. Give me that history book.
With that, it's not exactly surprising that he becomes Odium, huh?
Yeah, no, not really. Oh man, what's he gonna do? Yeah, just oof. Book 5's gonna be so good.
Yeah, there's gonna be bigger things, bigger plans for sure.
Way bigger. He's gonna be a big boss in this whole world of the Cosmere. He's gonna be maybe the biggest antagonist of the entire connected universe. So I can see that.
I think his story has to be finished in Stormlight, though.
I think everyone's story has to finish in their respective like launch series. Yeah. If he's going to stay true to that selling point of like, you can read any of my series and be satisfied, except for the Lost Metal.
Satisfying is a very subjective term, by the way.
Yeah. But I think he will. Like, I think, especially when you're coming around to end your series, you're especially careful when you tie it all up. But look, Seth stopped crying. He shoved it through his face and he said, I am death. He said, you know what? I'm still edgy. Despite all this.
So edgy.
Death. Seth, it's like, he's gone through it, but he's got some good one-liners.
Is Szeth the evolution of Zane from Mistborn?
Oh, no. Oh, Zane. I've mentally blocked out Zane. Who's that?
Same. Yep. I'm with you.
But hey, mate, let's wrap this up with one last, with our new segment at the end of our episodes. We're going to chuck in at least one Spanreed so we can keep interacting with you all. And we've got one for you this week. Jimmy Stormbless is going to take it away, I believe.
Yes. We have a show and you have a need. It's time for the weekly Spanreed.
Oh, I like that. That's good.
Szeth Theory. This is from Tyler. Tyler, thank you so much for writing in. He says, hi, Christian and Jimmy. Thank you for the podcast. I love it. Well, thank you, Tyler. Appreciate that. He says, I suspect after book 5, we will see Szeth as a character like a combination of Samwise. And by the way, folks, this is going to have a slight spoiler for Avatar: The Last Airbender. So if you haven't watched it, like I haven't, look away for a little bit. But anyways, Szeth as a character like a combination of Samwise from Lord of the Rings and Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Maybe he'll even be sort of a surprise main character. I think it is significant that the front 5 books start with Szeth and will end with a book with his flashbacks. Like Samwise, he's a character that's always been there, maybe in the background, but who is the real driving force behind major events. Shinovar is also the closest thing in Roshar to the classic fantasy farm town. Like Zuko, I think we will have a redemption arc. Coming home, no longer believing in the culture's definition and emphasis on honor. As a Skybreaker, he'll try to seek justice against those who set him on his path, but be talked down by Kaladin, no longer believing in blindly in stone shamanism or the Skybreaker's warped flavor of justice. Keep those safe hands covered, Kremling Horde. Tyler. I like this. I mean, I think Szeth's redemption arc has already began in a lot of ways, but also maybe he was just always kind of a bit misunderstood as well. I think that's certainly a part of it, and usually is a part of redemption arcs is people not understanding the full encompassing nature of a character. Jaime Lannister comes to mind. Samwise, I think, is maybe a little different.
Yeah.
Like Samwise does come back to the Shire, right? But the problem with Samwise, and this is actually why he's not like Samwise, in my opinion, is that Samwise comes back to the Shire after this grand journey and basically being a manservant to Frodo, right? And doesn't challenge any of the social constructs of the Shire. He doesn't change things for other people, maybe who are in that servant role. And I know that Samwise isn't treated like, terribly. I'm not criticizing Lord of the Rings here. I'm just saying Samwise isn't that character where I think that Szeth is that character. I think he does try to change things from where he is from. He's not just going to go back and be a legend and have some beer and get married. I think he's going back to make change and to make right with what happened. And whether or not to what level will be up for discussion. I do think Kaladin has a part to play in that, and Kaladin is going to give him lessons that he's learned along his path, and that's part of the friendship and the growth between those two characters, and it'll be really cool to see. I'm not sure how it all shakes out, but I think Samwise is only similar in the fact that he's a side character that returns home. For me personally. Now, Zuko, I've never watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, but it sounds like Zuko's far more like Szeth than Samwise.
I haven't watched all of it, but I definitely see the comparative point there much clearer than Samwise. Yeah, and Jaime Lannister to that degree too. But what's interesting, right? Because he is doing this redemption arc for sure already. It's like it's happening to some degree. And Szeth's, he swore an oath to like serve Dalinar. And if we rewind to last week with Sir Giancarlo with the Dark Dalinar theory, imagine, right? Like Szeth is redeeming himself. He's doing good. He's got his buddy cop arc with Kaladin, and then Dalinar goes to the dark side. But he swore this oath to like serve him, no matter what.
What if Dalinar has Szeth kill Kaladin?
He's like, you know what? This little brat, his blue uniform, has been stealing my thunder. Get him.
Could you imagine though if this whole buddy cop book and like they become friends, and then Szeth has to
ultimately, like I could see a tragic twist of fate where like it's so not in line with Stormlight though. Like, we keep imagining like these tragic endings.
I think it's going to be a lot more positive. I didn't think this until I realized how big of a gap between the books and how like separate. I know it's only a couple year difference and it's still all Stormlight, but like the first arc 1 through 5, I think is going to feel somewhat complete. And I don't think it's in Sanderson to leave us on like a very bittersweet cliffhanger.
Yeah, I think what Jake said was on point. Like it'll be like a kind of like a Pyrrhic victory. We've lost so much, but we just made it, and let's pick up the pieces for Era 2.
Yeah,
that will probably be it. We'll lose a few people along the way. A couple will become gods. Maybe some Kremlings will show up, and on your way, guys.
Yep.
See you in Mistborn Era 3, dummies. Get ready for the future. And that'll be that, guys. No need to buy the book. I've just summed it up.
It's a wrap.
Yeah. No, but honestly, I haven't felt this excited in a long time for flashbacks. I think Szeth's are going to be a contender for the best. So far.
Yeah, I think I didn't like the Venli flashbacks. So for me, I feel like, this is big. I need to, and I'm not a huge fan of flashbacks in general. There are quite a few that I like, but I am usually cautious about stories that have a bunch of flashbacks. That biases has been destroyed multiple times for multiple books. Lies of Lockmore is a really good example, actually. I love those flashbacks. So I'm hoping that we get back to form for my taste, at least. More in line with the Dalinar and the Shallan flashbacks.
Yeah, we can all agree that they've all got their merits, although I think it falls shortest in Rhythm of War. I suspect we'll see a return to form in this book. I think people's top spots of Words of Radiance will be hard to beat forever.
Yeah.
But I feel like the vast majority of people are going to enjoy book 5 more than 4, just because of the nature of it being a conclusion.
Yeah, 4 being a little bit of a bridge.
Yeah, it's in that awkward spot. Yeah. Yeah, but with that, guys, I think we'll wrap it up for this week. Thank you, as always, for accompanying us on this episode of Lost in Roshar. Remember, the most important chapter a man can read is the next one. We'll see you next week as we dive into chapter 52 and 53 and start part 4 of The Way of Kings.
And if you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, be sure to leave us a review on whichever platform you listen on. It helps us out tremendously. And if you have any theories, please Spanreed us at lostandroshar@gmail.com. We'll see you next time on Lost in Roshar. And remember to keep that safe hand covered.